lovelies, it is grumpy on the front porch day today. As you've probably seen, I've been setting up a restaurant in Rwanda for the past few months now. And sometimes I do videos where I show you around the restaurant and, you know, the decor and the process of doing all of the refurbishment, which is done now. We're open. And sometimes I talk you through what it's been like as a small business owner trying to get like stuff done and the process is done in Rwanda to operate legally. We've covered quite a few things so far. We've been to RDB to register our business. We've opened a bank account at BPR, and we've set up a Momo merchant account with MTN, and none of those were easy. At least for me. Since then I've met a few people who said, oh yeah, you know, we didn't have much of a problem doing some of those things. And I think that's definitely the thing, you know, when it goes well, it goes well, but the chances of it going wrong are quite high. And when it goes wrong, it goes really badly wrong. You know, simple stuff that should just take like, what, an hour will take you weeks at times. And I'm going to go into another one of those experiences today. And this one, of all of them, has taken the longest so far. So basically, because we're a restaurant, you need a restaurant license issued by the FDA, which is the Food Standards Agency. So it's got the same name as the American FDA, which gets a bit confusing, but it's the same kind of thing. They do the same kind of things. They monitor sort of import licenses for food and drugs and things. And yeah, technically they're the place that give you your restaurant license based on an inspection of the property to make sure that everything is hygienic and as it should be. And I have got no problem with that at all. When I go out to eat at a restaurant, I want to know that it's hygienic. And they strike a bit of terror into the restaurant community because they've recently closed down 3 or 4 large hotels. There was like a message went out recently saying that they're being closed down due to severe violations of like the food standards or health and safety code. And one of them was Century Park, which is just down the road. I love Century Park. That's where we went the other day to meet my accountant, and they had the fish in the tank, and I eat there quite regularly, which is a bit scary. So anyway, no problem with the concept of licensing restaurants. You know, I fully agree with that, and that is why I have been trying really hard to get a restaurant license, to be above board. You know, I mean, I've done a bit of training with our staff. My staff have like certificates in culinary management and things like that. My kitchen manager, she got a certificate in, I think it was food, beverages and operations management from the Tourism University in Rwanda. I thought it was going to be a real straightforward system. Like, I mean, it's always more fool me. I always go into this thinking whatever the process is, it's just going to be kind of straightforward, and done. No, it's until you retire is basically how these systems go. So I went online to the FDA website to try and apply online because that's what it says you're supposed to do, and the website didn't work. So it's really common in Rwanda that businesses will let their HTTPS certificate expire. Mostly because most of them don't know what it is. And the HTTPS certificate is the thing that means that your website is secure. It means you can process payments or input personal data or personal information, and it will be encrypted and it will be secure. Even my bank, even Access Bank, let it expire before and didn't even notice. You know, for a bank to do that is scary stuff. But the FDA also had that issue. It didn't work. You couldn't, most modern browsers today, like Chrome, Firefox, they won't physically allow you to access an unsecure site. They will literally say, like, there's a button saying, take me back to safety, because they won't let you do it. Rightly so. Yeah, so I couldn't access the FDA site because that. Now, you would assume that if a member of the public contacts you saying, hi guys, your website's really unsecure, it's open to hacking, that, you know, a company would go, oh my goodness, that shouldn't have happened, and fix it. They didn't. They didn't care. they just kind of, oh, yeah, no, it doesn't work. So, you know, then I was kind of left asking them, well, can you email me the forms that I need? And yeah, and eventually they did. And they made no sense whatsoever. Like, you're reading through it and you're thinking, you know, what is half of this stuff? There's no explanation at all. And there's something in there like plant layout. And I thought that was a spelling mistake. I thought they mean like planned layout, maybe, like the planned layout of your restaurant. Later on, I discovered that the only process they've got, and I'll explain this later, the only process that they've got is for importers and like big manufacturing, industrial sized food plants. So when they said plant layout, they literally meant like a food processing plant. And I'm sitting there thinking, but I'm a tiny restaurant with a small garden and about 10 tables. You know, plant layout, really? It was just a weird form that was quite hard to follow, but I did my very best. I printed out everything that I needed. They literally said, you know, bring it. So I did. I wrote down everything, I printed everything out, and I got everything ready. I think I had my passport photograph, which I'd had taken for my bank account, so I still had one. Copies of my passport, the certificate from, well, one of the certificates from my kitchen manager, the one that she did have. And I put it all together, everything that they could possibly have needed. And I went down there. Okay guys, I just had a really good experience at MTN. The customer service was lovely. And I'm now just crossed over the street and we're off to the FDA to submit our application for a restaurant license. So let's go see how that one goes. Oh wow, there's people who are actually washing the windows. Oh, that's a crazy job. Look at that. So I've just got out of the FDA and the most insane thing has just happened to me. I'm left speechless. I'm gonna go and get some food and I'm gonna go home and eat breakfast because I haven't really eaten today. And I'm going to tell you about it when I get home because honestly I need time to process this. It was absolutely I haven't got words for it. It was insane. Hi guys, so I've just dropped into Deli Box for my favourite sandwich because I need to calm down. I have kind of lost it a little bit. I've turned into like the worst version of myself. It's crazy. I don't know whether or not you can hear me very well. I might have to dub this over later because I think there's a school over there and there's a lot going on in traffic, so I might not be very clear. But yeah, I just realised I've hit my limit today. I've absolutely hit my limit. So yeah, the thing that was so crazy is, so I went to the FDA and I was sitting there for about 20 minutes before somebody came over to actually talk to me. There was only two people in there. There was a lady opposite and there was myself. And it took ages for anybody to come out and see us. The guy who came out was really, really nice. He was a really, really sweet guy. Nothing bad to say about him. He was lovely. But the information he gave me just caused my brain to go. It was, oh my God. Okay, let me just get to the point. Okay, so I haven't been able to apply online. You're supposed to apply for a restaurant license online. For 2 weeks I've been trying, but every time I visit the link that they gave me, the HTTPS certificate has run out. Now, if you don't know much about the internet, an HTTPS certificate encrypts the data that is being entered and received on the site. So it makes it hard for hackers, because if you can't decrypt the information, you can't see what's being exchanged on the website. Now, what makes this so dangerous is that on the FDA website, you not only have to enter all of your personal contact details, your information, your photograph, your signature, all of that, you also have to enter your payment details, because you have to pay the FDA to come and inspect your property. And in order to do that, you've got to make an online payment, right? Which is why most modern browsers, like if you're using Firefox, you're using Chrome, you're using a modern day web browser, it will not let you go onto an unsecured website and enter your details, because obviously a hacker could see that information. They could see who you are, they could see your bank details, they could see anything. They could absolutely royally screw you. So when I'm putting unsecured data onto a website, somebody else can sit in the middle and harvest that data. And I brought this up and I said, you know, your website doesn't work, your HTTPS certificate isn't renewed. And it's like so easy to get an HTTP certificate. You could get it like in 2 minutes, but I told them about this on email a couple of weeks ago and nobody's resolved it. And the information that I got back is, oh, it's okay. What we tell people to do is just to continue anyway. Just continue to the site. Ignore the warning. Just continue to the site. And that just made my brain go, this is a government body in Rwanda, a government body telling you to go to a site to enter your personal details and your payment details, your banking details, into a site that they know is not secure. And in 2 weeks of knowing it's not secure, haven't done anything about. I mean, it blew my mind. And I was sitting there and I said, because I brought all of the documents with me, I have everything here to submit. And he said, no, what you need to do then is go home and you need to send it by email instead. I'm like, okay. So I need to go and submit everything. They're going to come and inspect. And then when their website is working again, I can pay online. I have no confidence at all in data security or internet security in general. It's just shocking. It's honestly shocking. This is like basics of internet 101. You know, it's the kind of stuff you learn from day one of ever having an internet bank account, that you never go onto an unsecured website and just give it your details. So that happened, and then of course I got back to the car park, and this absolute, the word in Kinyarwanda is igichuchu. This absolute igichuchu had just blocked me in. Oh my goodness me! Look at this. This guy here has just parked, blocking in these 2 cars here and my bike. But look at that. They've completely blocked me in. There's no way to go out that way. There's no way to go out that way. What kind of a person parks like that? And again, it just highlights the problem of parking in Kigali. Wherever you go, you can't park, you just get blocked in. I need to leave. It's going to rain. I'm hungry. I want to go home. And basically this. And they're saying, oh, it's okay. You can just drive over here. Like, no, that's a really big curb, and then you've still got to get through there. You're going to scrape the paint off those cars, aren't you? And then I get sass from the parking inspector. Oh, you shouldn't have parked there. You should have parked in the area for bikes. And I'm sitting there thinking, oh right, like the area for bikes has got absolutely no signpost saying bikes park here, and not a single person in the car park who comes up to you and says, oh, you have a motorbike, come and park over here. Like, it feels like every service that you come into contact with, you're expected to be psychic. You know, you're expected to somehow magically divine what you're supposed to do, when nobody will tell you what you're supposed to do. There's no signposts, there's no preemptive information. And it just, after a few weeks of doing this, you're just sitting there going like, oh, you know, book me into an asylum. I know I'm being dramatic about this, but really, honestly, I haven't come across a single online system whilst trying to set up my business. There has not been a single online system that just works. Every single one of them is like, it ranges from pretty bad to absolute disaster, you know, and it just seems like so much focus has been put into development, meaning big buildings and paved roads, and they are so important, they are. But every country generally has big buildings and paved roads. What we're missing is development of communication, you know, development of systems that can cope with a large number of people, because there are now about 2 million people, just under 2 million people in the city of Kigali. And imagine how many businesses and how many restaurants that equates to. And every single restaurant needs a restaurant license, and not a single one of them can get one unless they're willing to go onto an unsecured website. And of course people will, because a lot of people are not that computer literate yet. And they will go, oh, well, if the government tells me to enter my payment information onto an unsecured website, then they must be right. They must know what they're doing, and I'm going to do that. You know, and they won't question it. Whereas, you know, I'm sorry, but as Mzungus, we question a lot of things, especially from authority. And it's like, yeah, no, you're telling me it's perfectly okay to enter my payment details, and I don't think it is. And yeah, the guy actually said, we know it's a problem, he said, we're sorry, he said, we're developing the website. And again, it's this thing about developing, and the thing is, it's exactly what happened with RDB. They are testing things on the public that should absolutely never be public. Never be public. You know, you don't test the system on the public. You don't develop an online system in front of an audience. You develop it, you check that it absolutely works, and then you make it public. Otherwise, I mean, like, otherwise you end up with really, really awful situations like this. It's really, really difficult. You just want the systems to be better than they are. You want them to work. But there seems to be a sort of an active resistance to it. You know, when you point out 2 weeks ago that it's not working, and 2 weeks later, a government department hasn't managed to fix it. And you're like, what is going on? What is going on? And like I say, I think it's because there's so much has been invested in how things look. It's like everywhere is very shiny, the offices are beautiful, the buildings are lovely. It's all about how it looks. But the functionality of things, that is where the key to development is. You know, as the city grows from like a few 100,000 people to a few million people, you have to have systems that can cope with that, and systems that work, and people who check the systems regularly to make sure that they work. And that is what we're missing at the moment. We're missing it. There's a chronic gap in kind of systems thinking. Like, if this is A and this is B, how do I get from here to here as fast and efficiently as possible? That's the bit that we're really missing at the moment. Anyway, my coffee has arrived. I think that's going to help. Though I do also think the rain is arriving. So my favourite sandwich has just arrived. Yeah, I don't feel proud of myself, because after I got out of there, having spent all of last night printing off everything and making sure that it was all correct, and going down there thinking that I could just apply for my restaurant license, and then going through all of that and still not getting my restaurant license, and then knowing that I have to go home and email it all and scan it all and copy it and email it all. And then when I got back to find that my bike had been blocked in, and I was not the nicest version of myself when I saw that, and I feel bad about losing my temper, but it's just like things push and push. Like, I'd spent 2 hours at MTN trying to get my Momo code, and that ended really well, because the customer service when I got to it was really good at MTN. They were very friendly and very helpful and just really nice, and I came away with a really good experience after that, but it still took 2 hours. And then having spent like about another 40 minutes or so sitting in FDA, and then coming out to find I couldn't leave, it was just, it kind of grinds you down bit by bit until you're just sitting there like, yeah, so, and again, I can't fault the guy at the FDA. He was a really lovely guy, as were the customer service at MTN. They were really nice. But it's the system that just, you know what I'm saying, But anyway, caffeine, food, home. I've been sitting here for about the past 20 minutes, and there's ice melting in the flower bed. Very random. I don't know why, but this brings me joy.
You know when you look around and you suddenly see something that you don't expect to see? There's some more of it over there. Where did the ice come from? What is its story?
Yes, well, go home. What you need to do is to go home and email everything to me. Email it. And I was like, right, so I'm sitting here in front of you with everything that I need, everything on that list all printed out, ready to give to you, and now you want me to go home and email it to you because of course you do, because of course. Silly me for thinking it was going to be a straightforward process. So tired and a bit fed up because I'd literally done MTN and FDA back to back, which you must never do. Never, never, never do that. If you're here and you're trying to set up a business, I tell you this in every single video, do one thing a day. Plan to do one thing a day, never more than one. Even my friend, she texted going, whoa, you know, that's the mistake you made. You tried to do 2 things in a day. You know, it is tacitly understood that things will take a very long time and there will be complications you did not see coming. And that was basically what happened here. Is I thought, hey, I'm just going to hop over the road and hand in all of my documents and, you know, set up an appointment to have my restaurant inspected. No. Don't be daft. Don't be daft. So yeah, I came home. And I think I left it for several days because I think by that point I didn't care anymore. You know, I kind of absolutely lost the will to focus on this. And I had a whole load of other things to do. Like I had to get EBM set up. I had to do, 100 other things. You know, there's a lot to do when you're setting up a business. And so I left it a few days. And then when I built up the stamina, I sat down and I attached everything that I had taken. I scanned what I needed to scan. I attached it to the email and I sent it off to the FDA because they had asked me. They had told me to send it by email. And a little while later, I get this message back saying, oh yeah, thanks for emailing everything to us. What you actually need to do is apply online. We've got a new website. Oh. So, you know, I tried to apply online, that didn't work. I went in person, that didn't work. They told me to email it, that didn't work. They told me now to try their new online system. By this point, I was ready to set fire to the restaurant. You know, I was like, I don't think I can do this anymore. So, you know, I was trying to follow the rules. I'd done everything they'd asked of me up to this point, and I'd just been going round and round like a goldfish in a bowl for weeks. So I went onto their new online system. My God. I mean, I suppose the upside is, if we're being positive about it, the upside was at least it had an HTTPS certificate. You know, at least it was a secure website this time. Did it work? What do you think? Did it work? Oh. So I spent an absolute age on there. I think I spent an entire afternoon going round and round and round trying to find the option to apply for a restaurant inspection, because like ain't nothing on there make no sense. Like if you're just a layperson, in fact I'm not just a layperson, you know, I've got like a graduate degree, a postgraduate degree. Not that having a degree makes you smart, but it can make you paper smart sometimes. So like you're usually very good at filling out forms. From the day that you fill out your UCAS form in the UK to like all the way through your academic sort of journey, you learn to fill out forms. So I consider myself quite adept at online forms and systems. Could I figure this one out? Nobody could. Einstein himself would have given up. So yeah, basically I went round and round it looking for the place where you could apply for a restaurant inspection, a restaurant license. Wasn't there. I got to something that kind of looked like it would allow you to do that, but then as I followed through, it came to this point where it said to upload the documents. Now when you're applying for a restaurant license, they give you a very specific set of documents to attach, and I had them all because, you know, I tried to deliver them in person and then I, tried to email them. So I had what I thought was everything I needed. But then when it came to attaching the documents, it very quickly became apparent that I had more documents that I was being requested to submit than there were slots to attach documents to. So, and I couldn't create any new slots to attach any more documents. So I could only upload a set number of documents. And I was kind of on the border. I was literally thinking, well, sod it. Let's just send it and they can ask me for anything I haven't attached later. But then when I got to the bit about submissions, it then had this neat little insert that told you that if you didn't submit every document that was required, that you would pay a non-refundable 100,000 francs for them to review your application. And if you didn't have everything submitted, you lose that 100,000, which is about 50 quid, and you will never get it back again. And at that point I thought, hell no, I'm out. I'm not just going to throw you 100,000 francs hoping that, well, no, not even hoping that I've attached all the documents, knowing that I haven't been able to submit all the documents you want from me. So by this point, I discovered that the new FDA online system only seems to allow you to apply if you are an importer of food or drugs or stuff. And I'm not an importer, I'm just a restaurant. I'm a small restaurant. Like I said, I've got 10 tables. I'm not a food importer or a manufacturing plant or anything like that. I'm just a restaurant. And I emailed them saying, look, I can't find the way to do this. And the FDA emailed back saying, oh, well, just apply as an importer. And I was sitting there thinking, but then I lose 100,000. So I get fined by the FDA if I don't have a restaurant license, and I get fined by them if I try to apply for one. It's like the Gordian knot of logic here, isn't it? Sorry, I'm getting a bit spicy right now. I'm tired of these systems. I am tired of them. At that point, I almost broke down in tears. I'd been going at this for weeks, and I was so damn tired because I had so many other things to deal with. I'm not even going to get into the EBM system at the moment. So I basically I backed out of that. And I went on to Kigali Entrepreneurs Forum. So there's a little group of, small business owners and entrepreneurs in Kigali. And we used to have a thriving community. Literally before COVID, it was thriving. Like we'd meet up once a month at a different restaurant every time, just to chill out, exchange information, tips, talk about business and the problems we were facing, and exchange contacts for people who could help you. It was a really good sort of meetup, and sometimes, you'd have 20, 30 people there sometimes. But now, unfortunately, since COVID, it's really just like dwindled. A lot of people left. And so now it's a much, much smaller group, and it's mostly me complaining about the internet, to be honest. It's not really an endorsement for joining it. But I went in there and I was like, look guys, how do I apply for an FDA license? And a friend said, oh, well, they said, we went to RDB One Stop Shop and they helped us. Now, RDB, Rwanda Development Board, who I've talked about before, they're there, they have a one-stop shop where you're supposed to be able to go as a business and ask for help with anything that is preventing you from doing business, like any of the systems you don't understand, which is all of them, and anything that you need assistance with or help with, RDB is supposed to be able to give you that assistance. So I ended up contacting RDB One Stop, and wow, yeah, no, they weren't able to help at all. They basically, all they kept saying was, oh, we don't deal with the FDA stuff, you've got to go to the FDA for that. They tried to explain, as if I hadn't tried. I'd explained to them, hi guys, couldn't do it online, couldn't do it in person, couldn't do it by email. I'd explained all of this to them, and their advice was, oh, well, you should really contact the FDA. And I'm like, but I have contacted the FDA many times over several months now, and I'm getting nowhere. And at one point, RDB phoned me up to apologise for not having been able to help with my FDA situation, asking, is there anything we can help you with? And I was like, yeah, the FDA situation. And they just came back saying like, yeah, no, we can't help you with that. And it's just, well, then why are you calling me? They were literally just calling me to apologise. But here you get that constantly. It's constantly sorry, 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 sorry. But the way that you do sorry is to help somebody to overcome the problem that they've got. Like saying sorry, sorry, but we can't help you. It's like, well, did that really need a phone call? You know, did that need a phone call? So I'm still sitting in this really awkward situation because I still need a restaurant inspection to get a restaurant license, and RDB can't help me. And when I contact the FDA, all they say is, you know, oh, submit it online as though you're a food importer, which I can't do because I'm going to kiss goodbye to 100,000 francs that I really don't have to spare at the moment. And I'm just going around in circles. The tricky part of this is that I know, I'm not stupid, I do know that by making this video about it, there is a chance that I will enrage the powers that be and it will be an automatic no to a restaurant license. It can be a risk that you run, that by complaining about something and saying, well, look, this doesn't work, that, you know, it can backfire on you because people can sort of decide, oh, right, we're going to make your life difficult because you've pointed out that we're making your life difficult. That does happen. And so I know by making this video, I might be shooting myself in the foot. But at the same point, I cannot be the only one facing this, right? I mean, how many people, foreigners and locals, are trying to run restaurants here at the moment? And in the foreign business community, there is kind of a bit of a joke that if you try to follow the regulations, you're going to have a really hard life. But coming from the West, we follow the regulations most of the time. You know, if there are licensing regulations and rules, we will follow those because they're there to keep people safe and healthy and, you know, to make sure things are done properly. And we like things done properly, so we follow the rules. But my friend was saying, you know, most like restaurants around here, like locally run, they're not going through all of this. They're, you know, they wait until the FDA turns up. And at the moment, I kind of feel like that's what I want to do because I am tired of constantly banging my head against a wall trying to get this submitted. So I don't know what to do. I mean, I am out of like ideas here. I've tried RDB, I've tried the FDA many times, and it's weird because they just, even when you explain the problem, the FDA's like, they don't get that there's a problem. It's like this idea, oh, you know, HTTPS has kind of expired, leaving you open to having your bank details, your personal information stolen. But that's okay, just do it anyway, just do it anyway. And it's like, oh, the new online system, our brand new sparkly online system doesn't work for restaurants, you can't do what you need to do, but don't worry, just like kiss goodbye to 100,000 and submit some random forms anyway. It's like, can we not just make it work? Can we not just make it work properly, maybe? You know, just like, maybe, you know, because if it works properly, then you don't have to talk to me and have this back and forth for 3 months and, you know, get annoyed at the fact that I'm pointing out that it doesn't work because it works. How about we just make it work? Can we make it work? Oh, I don't know. Anyway, I'm exhausted. I think you can tell that I am exhausted. I'm reaching kind of the dramatic stage of exhaustion where I gesticulate a lot and raise my voice. I'm honestly tired. I am tired. I feel like every single system, and I haven't even told you about the EBM system yet. That was a whole other doozy. And I'm also changing internet providers because our internet provider hasn't provided internet for 3 days solid, even though we're paying them. And I haven't told you about the fact that we're changing banks because, well, that's a whole other story. I'm not going to go into it here, but literally since the day of opening the restaurant, it's been a lot. It's been a lot. Like, the systems involved are chronically unfit for purpose a lot of the time. And yeah, now that I've said that out loud, I've probably made my life 1,000 times harder because, you know, I've probably annoyed a few people by mentioning it. But if that happens, that happens. You know, that happens. I feel like for the good of everybody living in Rwanda, these systems have got to get better. They've got to start working. You know, we focus so much in terms of development, we focus so much on how tall the buildings are and whether the roads are paved. We don't focus at all on communication, efficient, effective, you know, speedy communication, and things just crumple. It's like you try and use these systems and it just, they're breaking all over the place, and I don't know why, because you know, it's not like, I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to stop grumbling. I'm going away now. I am sorry about this. I think that this video is a very niche market because I don't think there are that many people trying to open restaurants at the moment in Rwanda, in Kigali. But if you're a foreigner thinking about it, be aware of this. And if and when I either A, get my restaurant inspection and potentially my restaurant license, or B, get shut down for whatever reason, I will let you know either way what the conclusion to this is, if we ever reach a conclusion. So, bye.